Hi, my name is Michelle and I'm doing the introduction for this video. Introduction. The article entitled Violence Against Women Ignored is a commentary piece from the Ottawa Sun newspaper discussing the issues of murders, violent acts, and disappearances of women in today's society, as well as relevant past instances. Based on the evidence in the article, it is clear to see that this is an ongoing and prevalent issue, as violence against women has only continued throughout the years, and in some instances, only 4 to 5 years apart. For example, the detailed issue in the article discusses the murder of Arlene May, which happened 20 years ago, and then the murder of Gillian Hadley, which happened only 5 years later. So both crimes were made by different men, but they committed the same crime, and no extensive care was taken during the first crime to stop a second instance of it from happening, which is why it happened a second time. The Canadian Women's Foundation posted relevant facts and statistics about violence against women on their website. Some of these facts include that on an average, every 6 days, a woman in Canada is killed by her intimate partner. In 2011, from 89 police reports of spousal homicides, 76 of these victims, over 85%, were women. On any given day in Canada, more than 3,300 women, along with their 3,000 children, are forced to sleep in emergency shelters to escape domestic violence. And every night, about 200 of these women are turned away because the shelters are full. So these stats prove the statement reported in the article that the systems that are claiming to protect women are in fact failing them. According to the author in the article, over 250 jury recommendations were made during the cases of Arlene May and Gillian Hadley to improve the systems to protect women. Unfortunately, not a lot can be found in the progress of women's safety towards violence because there aren't many options other than shelters for these women. The author believes that implications made into the system that would need to include not only shelters for abused women, but also affordable housing so these women can leave the shelters and restart their lives with their children in a safe place, livable social assistance and wage rates, access to affordable education and childcare. In general, the article supports the idea that these implications would be key to assisting women leave violent environments and possibly be the next step towards rebuilding their lives.
Hi, I'm Hillary Ellsworth, and I'm going to talk to you about functionalist sociology, a theoretical orientation that views society as a system of interdependent parts whose functions contribute to the stability and survival of the system, is the definition of functionalist sociology perspective from dictionary.com. A functionalism theorist would agree with Burns that the issue of women's violence has not been resolved because the society is not prioritizing the problem as functionally important. Only if a society determines an issue as functionally important will the functions of that society begin to develop and change to solve the problem. This is why Burns expresses the attention for minuscule politic debates, such as wearing the niqab, should be geared towards more substantial problems that have existed for a longer time, in particular, violence against women. As women are a group in society, a functionalism theorist would believe that a discrepancy exists somewhere in the socialization of a society concerning women that is encouraging acts of violence upon them. For instance, the victim could be under-socialized in terms of learning self-worth and confidence, causing them to be more susceptible to remaining with an abusive member. On the other end of the spectrum, the abusers could be under-socialized to believe that they are superior to the women, and resorting to either verbal or physical abuse is an acceptable action to take in their society. Burns believes that the functions set in place in our society to protect women against violence are failing. She rightfully states that the criminal system in place to punish abusers is not adequate. Burns uses the number of murder cases of several women whom were murdered by repeat violent offenders whom had previously been punished for their actions. This latest case appears to show, yet again, how systems that claim to protect women and children in fact repeatedly fail them. And that's a quote straight from the article. An issue like this, in turn, should be resolved for the benefit of the entire societal system because, according to functionalism theory, if one interdependent group is unstable, the function of the entire society is jeopardized. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tara Coyle, and today I'll be talking about conflict theory. Conflict theory is the imbalanced relationship between social classes regarding power and position. Karl Marx, a German philosopher, journalist, and socialist, proposed conflict theory, which stated that society is in a perpetual state of conflict caused by competition for limited resources. The poor are often suppressed by those with power and wealth, as they continuously try to hold on to the power by any means. Generally, those who are born into working-class families will work working-class jobs, and those who are born into middle and upper-class families will live a higher quality life in regards to their position in society. People in the positions of upper classes will learn about appropriate behaviors and habits of the upper-class lifestyle, and same can be said for the lower-class civilians. When the social gap between upper and lower classes becomes too great, domestic violence also increases. This gap puts larger pressure onto the social classes the upper class hold onto the power within the socioeconomic classes. In this article written by Leanne Burns, Burns describes the murders as preventable and predictable. The 3 women who were murdered were all involved with a man who had a criminal record of domestic violence. Conflict theorists would agree that there are social conflicts between men and women in which men are seen as superior and dominant. Therefore, violence against women is more common. According to American Psychological Association, women in households making under $10,000 per year are 4 times more likely to experience domestic violence than their wealthy counterparts. For women and their families to escape these situations, shelters are needed. However, to start a new life, affordable housing is needed. Since households with low incomes are much more likely to experience domestic violence, those are the women who truly need the shelters and ultimately affordable housing. However, if the gap between the upper and lower classes is too great, affordable housing will become harder and harder. Therefore, this conflict must be handled well for every social class to live as well as possible. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Amelie Lemire, and I will be talking about symbolic interactionist theory. Symbolic interaction theory focuses on subjectivity. Symbolic interactionists accept that people conduct themselves based on what they believe, in addition to what they know to be true. By accepting this theory, society is then known to be constructed through human interpretation. This interpretation is also known as the definition of the situation, which is defined as how people obtain a sense of the statuses and the roles of those involved in the situation so that they know how to behave. Another component of symbolic interactionism is the looking-glass self. This aspect focuses on our ability to imagine how we must appear to others, the judgment of that appearance, and our development of self through the judgment of others. The article, Violence Against Women Ignored, also provides symbolic interactionist elements. For example, a definition of the situation is created when the author discusses the lack of services offered to women who have suffered domestic abuse and violence. The author explains that, quote, shelters all over this country are full to capacity and routinely have to turn women and children away. Quote, this statement implies that the women might feel that their desperate situations are unwanted by the government or the public. As shelters are forced to turn women away, they might view their situations as less severe, as it seems to them that other women and children need more help than they do. Also, another component of symbolic interactionism can be found in the form of the looking-glass self. The author clearly states that, quote, given the opportunity, women and children who have similar stories to tell of the daily terrors they face would undoubtedly call upon a political leadership to develop much more helpful responses than this. Quote, if the political party won't consider discussing the resolution of violence against women, shelters are turning women away, and prisons aren't keeping abusive partners locked away. So it's no wonder that women look around at how society has decided to help them and decide to take their chances alone. In order to have a positive symbolic interactionist view on violence against women, the systems and institutions charged with abused women's well-being must begin to provide better services to encourage them to get help.
Hi, I'm Michaela Kavanaugh, and I'll be doing the critical assessment on the article called Violence Against Women Ignored. Unfortunately, as much as the writer hoped to have persuaded her readers with a clear understanding of the stigma behind women's abuse, she instead leaves us rather confused and lost as to what she wants us to fully understand. Reading the article, there seemed to have a lot of missing informative facts. She raised a lot of her own biased opinions and left us with broad, unfulfilling statements. In the first few sentences, she leaves the readers with an argument trying to evoke fear and emotion. I quote, "How many women and children's bodies will have to pile up before we see any meaningful action on violence against women in Canada?" Inducing fear and emotion into the reader is an effective way to intrigue the reader, but she crosses a line when she inserts her own personal views and biasism into it. She throws her personal emotion and fear at us rather than trying to persuade us with legitimate reasoning and facts. We can agree that her status as the executive director of a women's shelter makes her an informed source and that she could supply us with accurate information. But if we flip that idea, she can also present to us these arguments as a biased source. Secondly, she informs us about, and I quote, "how the system that claims to protect women and children in fact repeatedly fail them," but follows that sentence by saying that these failings have been documented and studied over and over again. Byrne leaves us with no further information, statistics, or facts regarding that statement to further back her up. She leaves us questioning her authority and knowledge on the matter, as well as the overall validity of the subject. Furthermore, we feel as if we are reading from an uneducated writer on the subject presented. She informs us about 3 different murder cases against women, but says, "All I know about these articles and particular cases is what I have read and heard in media reports." She speaks about these 3 cases, but then leaves us feeling as if she knows absolutely nothing about what she is discussing. Her argument is left undeveloped. In addition, throughout the entire article, she touches on the controversies surrounding the niqab in the recent election, but really leaves us confused about what her focus on that subject is. She does not relate it back to her conclusion and does not link it with the rest of her major points, such as her information about the 3 murder cases. Again, leaving us confused. Lastly, her conclusion was left broad, short, rushed, and unelaborated. She addresses the needs of women who must leave violent circumstances when she mentions affordable housing and livable wage rates. However, she barely explains how the community is supposed to help enforce these women's needs, other than leaning on politicians to do that job for us instead. Thank you.